Is South Korea dying? South Korea's population has been decreasing for years. People are getting married later in life or not at all, and the number of births is plummeting. So what gives? Why are South Koreans not having babies? What does this mean for the future of South Korea? And how can South Korea stop its population from declining? Well, we got answers for all of these questions, so let's get started with the first one. Why are South Koreans not having babies? To understand why South Koreans are not having kids, it's important to look at two major factors that influence people's decisions regarding marriage and children: economic conditions and social expectations. Starting with economic conditions, let's talk about the cost of raising a child. According to a report by the Bank of Korea, it costs around 168 million won or $124,000 to raise a child until the age of 18. This includes expenses like food, clothing, education, and housing. Now, South Korea is known for being one of the most expensive countries to raise a child due to high costs associated with education, which includes private tutoring or hagwon, which is very popular in South Korea. In fact, South Korea spends more money on private education than any other country in the world. The average household spends approximately 35% of their total expenditure on education. That's almost twice the OECD average. In addition to education, South Korean couples also face significant expenses related to buying a home, which is another major financial burden. According to a survey conducted by the Korea Economic Research Institute, the average cost of buying an apartment in Seoul, the capital city, is around 567 million won or $426,000. And this is just the cost of the apartment itself. It doesn't include the additional expenses associated with furnishing the house. So you can see that the economic pressure to have children is very high in South Korea. Now let's talk about social expectations. In South Korea, there is a strong cultural preference for having children, especially sons. This is rooted in Confucian values that have traditionally influenced Korean society for centuries. The birth rate in South Korea began to decrease rapidly after the 1970s when the country experienced rapid economic growth and industrialization. As South Korea became more modernized, women had more opportunities for education and career advancement, which led to a shift in their roles in society. Instead of focusing primarily on marriage and motherhood, women were able to pursue their own interests and ambitions. This change in societal norms and expectations contributed to the decline in birth rates, as women were less likely to prioritize childbearing over their personal and professional goals. Additionally, the changing social structure in South Korea played a role in the declining birth rate. Traditionally, extended family networks provided support for child rearing. But as urbanization and nuclearization increased, families became smaller and more isolated. This lack of support from extended family members may have made it more difficult for young parents to manage the demands of raising children. Furthermore, the introduction of the Western concept of romantic love as the basis for marriage rather than an arranged marriage based on family and societal connections also influenced the declining birth rate. This shift in mindset may have led to a decrease in the likelihood of marriage and subsequently a decrease in the birth rate. Another factor contributing to the low birth rate in South Korea is the increasing age of marriage. Young adults are getting married later in life, which means they are also starting their families later. This trend is driven by several factors including changing social norms, increased focus on education and career, and higher living standards. South Korea has seen a significant increase in the average age of first marriage for both men and women. According to Statistics Korea, the average age of marriage for men was 33.4 in 2022, up from 27.2 in 2000. For women, the average age of marriage was 31.5 in 2022, up from 25.3 in 2000. This increase in the age of marriage has contributed to the overall decrease in the birth rate as couples are choosing to start their families later in life. What does this mean for the future of South Korea? The low birth rate in South Korea has significant implications for the country's future. A smaller population can lead to an older workforce, which can strain the economy and social services. Additionally, a declining population can result in a shrinking consumer market, which can impact economic growth and innovation. South Korea's population has been decreasing since 2005. In 2005, the country had a population of 48.3 million. By 2022, the population had decreased to 49.6 million. This decline is expected to continue in the coming years. According to the United Nations, South Korea's population is projected to decline to 37.4 million by 2050. To address this issue, South Korea has implemented various policies to encourage people to have more children. These policies include financial incentives, improved childcare support, and measures to promote work-life balance. However, the effectiveness of these policies remains to be seen. Some experts argue that more drastic measures are needed, such as providing free childcare or increasing parental leave benefits. Others argue that the government should focus on addressing the root causes of the low birth rate, such as the high cost of living and housing. Only time will tell what the future holds for South Korea, and whether it can successfully navigate the challenges of a declining population. So that's the answer to the question, why is South Korea dying? But there are still some other interesting questions. Like, what is the population pyramid of South Korea? How does it look like? Well, here is the answer to that question. The population pyramid of South Korea reveals a stark reality of the country's demographic crisis. A close look at the pyramid shows a dramatic shrinking in each successive generation. The base of the pyramid, which represents the youth population, is significantly narrower than the generations above it. This trend is even more pronounced when compared to other developed countries. For example, in 2000, South Korea had a youth population of around 14 million, while Japan had around 18 million. Fast forward to 2022 and South Korea's youth population has dropped to around 10 million, while Japan's has only decreased to 15 million. This widening gap highlights the severity of South Korea's demographic crisis and raises concerns about the country's future prospects. As mentioned earlier, the average age of marriage in South Korea is relatively high, which contributes to the small size of the youth population. Additionally, the low birth rate further exacerbates this issue. In 2000, the total fertility rate, which represents the average number of children born to a woman during her reproductive years, was around 1.2 in South Korea, well below the replacement level of 2.1. Since then, the fertility rate has declined even further to around 0.8 in 2022. This sharp decline in the birth rate has resulted in fewer children being born each year, leading to a smaller youth population. One of the key factors driving the low birth rate in South Korea is the rising cost of child rearing. According to a survey conducted by the Korea Economic Research Institute, the cost of raising a child in South Korea is among the highest in the world. The expenses include not only basic necessities such as food and clothing, but also education and housing. South Korea's education system is highly competitive and parents often feel pressured to invest heavily in their children's education, such as private tutoring and after-school programs. Additionally, the high cost of housing in urban areas makes it challenging for young families to afford a decent place to live, which can discourage people from having children. Another factor contributing to the low birth rate is the changing role of women in society. South Korea has made significant progress in terms of gender equality and women's rights. However, traditional gender roles and societal expectations still persist. Many women in South Korea face a difficult decision: choose between pursuing a career and having a family. The lack of support for working parents, such as affordable childcare and flexible work arrangements, makes it challenging for women to balance both career and family life. This in turn contributes to the low birth rate, as women are less likely to have children if they feel they cannot balance both aspects of their lives. The declining youth population in South Korea has significant implications for the country's future. A smaller younger generation can lead to an older workforce, which can have various implications for the economy and social services. Additionally, a declining population can result in a shrinking consumer market, which can impact economic growth and innovation. South Korea has implemented various policies to encourage people to have more children, such as financial incentives, improved childcare support, and measures to promote work-life balance. However, the effectiveness of these policies remains to be seen. In conclusion, South Korea's population pyramid paints a stark picture of the country's demographic crisis, with a rapidly aging population and a shrinking youth population. The low birth rate, driven by various factors such as the rising cost of child rearing and changing societal norms, has significant implications for South Korea's future. Addressing this issue requires comprehensive measures to support families, promote gender equality, and create a sustainable future for the country. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a like and watch other videos about amazing facts from around the world.